Hello and welcome to How to Change Your Username on WordPress. I'm Javis Lewis and I'm here to guide you through this process step by step. This is a bit of an out of schedule podcast for me. I wasn't going to do this week, but something happened, a couple of news reports have happened that suggested that a giant network of bots is targeting WordPress installations specifically for users that log in as admin. And that used to be the default administrative login, but it's been changed in WordPress 3.0. You can log in with anything you like. So before that, the admin user was always present, and since WordPress 3.0, you can change that. And what this bot network has shown us is that you must make sure you do not use admin to log in. Very important, because that is a username that they're specifically targeting. And if you are logging in as admin, then you are well advised to change to a different username. If you're currently logging in as something other than admin, that's fine, keep going. But if you are logging in as admin, then you are under threat that your WordPress website may well be compromised in the future. This process is a little bit involved, so I'm going to be here with you step by step, and I'm going to show you what to do. And it's not rocket science, but it's something that you just need to be aware of, and you got to do that. So let's cover the steps that are involved. Sadly, WordPress does not allow you to just change a username. You have to create a new one for that. So that's the first thing that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to create a new user with a name that does not currently exist on the WordPress installation you're using. And also you're going to have to pick a separate email address. So just like usernames must be unique, WordPress also requires that email addresses for users are unique. So you can't have two users, different users that have the same email address. WordPress isn't going to let you do that. But it's not a problem. You can just give it a temporary address. The address doesn't even need to exist. So the next thing is that you're going to have to log in as this new user instead of admin. So you're going to log in with your new chosen username, new chosen password, and then you're going to delete the admin user. And in so doing, WordPress will allow you to attribute all the posts from the previous admin user to a new user. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. It's no problem. WordPress is very straightforward with that. So once you've done all that and the admin user is deleted, you can then take whatever email address the admin user used to have, so your regular one, and change this email address to your current user. So therefore your email address and all your notifications won't change. If someone leaves a comment, it still goes to the same email address. We're going to cover that as well. So without further ado, let's get started. This is my local WordPress installation here, and I've set something up here. I am admin, and I have a very secure password, which is password. So spot the deliberate mistake here. So admin, no good as username, and password, obviously the password that's being cracked probably first before anyone tries anything else. So I'm logging in here, and this is my standard WordPress backend, just as we know it and just as we love it. On the bottom here, there's a tab that's called Users, and you can go to All Users to have a quick look at who's currently a user on your system. This is a great opportunity to ban people or delete people who used to be users who really don't need to be users on your website anymore. So I only have one. This is good, and my username is admin. So this is the bad one. Remember, admin, login, bad. You can also see how many posts the user has. That's over here on the right hand side. He currently has 18 posts, and the role is the administrator. So this is the highest role who can do basically everything with your website, which is so important that we don't let any hackers from China or from God knows wherever into our website, because as an administrator you can literally do anything. That is why by default the administrator used to be called admin, but we don't want to do that anymore. So if you may have tried this in the past, if you go to edit, you can't change the username. Usernames cannot be changed, so we can't do anything about that. We can, however, create a new user. So one other thing of note here, my current email address is support@wpguru.co.uk. I would like to keep that address when I'm creating a new user, and WordPress isn't going to let me do that. We can try this, so I'm going to copy this. I'll show you what happens. So step 1, add a new user. Under the users tab, head over to add new. Do that and you're being brought to the add new user dialog. First thing WordPress wants to know is a username. So in my case, I'll just be perhaps Lewis, as that is my name. I want an email address, so I'm just going to paste the one in that I used before, and all the other fields are more or less optional. I mean, I will do this. I'm going to put my name in here, first name and last name, if I can spell my own name correctly. If you can't, obviously that's a bit of a problem. Website, this is not overly important. You can always add these details later. The most important thing, of course, is the password, which you have to type in here twice. So I'm going to stick with something rather simple here. And WordPress immediately tells me that is weak. So if you add numbers to the end, that makes it strong. And obviously, if you mismatch them, WordPress will also tell you that. So I'm going to put this password here, which I can remember. It's password 123 in my case, so something I don't recommend to use, but for demonstration purposes, hey, there we go. Just make sure this says strong, and you know, add in a few funky characters there. Send password, no, we don't want to do that. But the user role is important. So down here where it says role, you have a drop down, and you can give the new user certain privileges. Subscriber is the lowest one. This is what WordPress gives out as default. And then there's contributor, author, editor, but we really want to be an administrator. So the administrator can do anything from adding new themes to making graphical changes, whereas a subscriber, for example, can't even write posts, let alone edit posts. So we want to be an administrator. Now if I do this, WordPress is going to tell me that's not possible because that email address already exists. I need to give it a new email address. But that's no problem. We've already copied it. If you haven't, this is a great opportunity to do so. I'm just going to give it a dummy email address. So I'm going to say dummy@mydomain.com. I can't, of course, check any email at that because that's not my email address. But this doesn't matter. We're just going to trick WordPress and saying, hey, doesn't really matter what that email address is. Just get my username created. And I need to type in my password here again. And there we go. Role is already set to administrator. That's perfect. Add a new user. Ta-ta, that's done. So now we have Lewis. This is my new user. And we have the admin user. Lewis currently doesn't have any posts. And the admin user has 18 posts. I would like Lewis, my new user, to take on all the posts from the previous guy. So right now, because I'm logged in as admin, I can't delete it. Lewis, no problem. I could delete that. I've just created it. But I want to keep that. I want to delete admin. How do we do that? No problem. We're going to go over here to the right-hand side and log out as admin. Now we're logged out. Now we need to log in as the new user. So in my case, that's Lewis. In your case, pick something funky, something memorable. Your first name, your last name, your first name and your last name concatenated. Name of your pet, whatever you fancy. And your super secret password, so mine is password 123. Not so secret after all. And you're going to log in. And the same thing again. You go back on the left-hand side here, you go to users. And have a look at all your users. Now, since I'm logged in at Lewis, I can't delete myself, but I can delete admin, and that's precisely what I'm going to do. Notice that WordPress now says, okay, I can delete this user, but what do you want to do with the posts that admin has written? And there were 18 of them. Do you want to delete all of them? Certainly not. Or do you want to attribute all posts to a different user? And in this case, I only have one alternative here, and that's me. That's my new user. That's the name I've set up. So I want to do that. I want to attribute all my posts to Lewis. And confirm deletion. So before you do that, confirm deletion means the user deletion. It's not going to delete your posts unless you select this, which you do not want to do. So attribute all posts to Lewis. Confirm deletion. Ta-da, admin gone. Notice no more admin. And I'm an administrator, and I have my 18 posts back. That's exactly what we want. So there's only one other thing that we need to do. Obviously my email address dummy@mydomain.com, that's no good to anybody. I want to go and edit that. I want to use the same email address that I had before with the previous admin user, which luckily I have copied, so that's support@wpguru.co.uk. And as soon as you hit update profile, That address is now active. That's perfect. So now, just to verify everything, all users, you do not have an admin user anymore. That's very important, but to avoid all these attacks, you must not have an admin user. Even if you have an admin user on your system and you do not use it to log in, make sure the admin user gets deleted, because that is the way the hackers will get in. So make sure you do not have an admin user sitting there in your list of users anymore. Make sure while you're logged in that you have an email address here that you have access to, because anything happens, you lose your password, this and the other, you can't be sent a new one if this is an email address you do not have access to. There is a podcast in which I cover ways around that. So if you're in the unlikely situation that you've lost your password and you do not have access to your website anymore, then there are ways that you can still get in, but it's extremely involved. So there's another video on my website that'll cover that. And that, as they say, is it. It was a bit involved, so if you have any problems, rewatch that video, click the pause button, and just follow all the steps. You'll be up and running in no time. Just make sure there's no more admin user there. Let's have a quick recap of all the steps that were involved. So first of all, obviously, you're logging in as the previous admin user or as your current user that you're using. You're going to, from there, go to the user menu, create a new user. And once you've done that, you're going to log in as that new user, then delete the admin user, and in so doing, attribute all the posts from the previous admin user to your new user. Then, very important, make sure you change your email address to one that you can access. So that can be the one that previously used to work on admin, or maybe you have a second one spare, or maybe you have several, I don't know. But just make sure you can access that email address. I also wanted to give you a few security tips just to avoid anything that may happen. You know, I mean, the changing from the admin user, that was one thing, but there are a few other things that you can do in order to not get hacked, or in the unlikely event that something drastic happens with your website, you've got to be aware, you've got to be able to recover from these things. So number one that you can do to always be on top of the game is always update your plugins. Plugins are the biggest security threat to your website. The more plugins you have, the more of a chance you have of being hacked. So use as little plugins as you can, or as you can get away with. I've seen websites with about 50, 60 plugins installed. Not only does that make the site really slow and sluggish, it also poses an enormous security threat, because some developers, like myself, just don't find the time to update and secure their plugins going forward. So what used to work 2 or 3 years ago and used to be top-notch security is no longer secure. So if you do not need a plugin, delete it. If you have plugins that need upgrading, and there are upgrades for them available, then upgrade them. Very important. The same goes for the WordPress core. WordPress is under active development, so every few weeks, every few months, there will be security patches. You can see that when your website is currently on 3.5 and they've released 3.5.1, then that's usually not an enhancement in terms of functionality, that's usually an enhancement in terms of security. So they would have patched holes, new scripts have come out that WordPress relies on, so they would have used the latest versions of those. That's why it's always important to keep WordPress and your plugins absolutely updated. Another thing that's everyone says that about computers: pick a strong password. So admin123 is a bad password. Password in itself is a bad password. Even password123 is a bad password. Anything that people can easily guess, anything with less than 5 letters, even less than 8 letters, is a bad password. Put some numbers in there, put some capital letters in there, put some special characters in there, %, ampersand, $, any of these things, and use them mixed up. And even more so, there was this super annoying Windows feature that every month or so in the company I was working at, this thing would pop up and say, hey, you need to change your password. And we thought this was really annoying, but at the same time it is good for security. Change your password regularly, every 30 days, every 60, every 90 days, but don't leave it like the same password, say password123 for 5 years. No good. People will eventually get that via brute force. And another very important point, and a very annoying point, I know that, is keep a backup of your website. Don't say, hey, I've backed it up 2 years ago. No good. Do this once a month. Keep a regular backup of your website in case something does happen. There are videos on this website that discuss what you can do, the options that you can have, and how you can restore your website. And the final point is, do all these things above, all these 4 points, do them regularly. Every once in a while, go into your website and check that your plugins and your WordPress core is up to date. Do change your password every once in a while and keep a backup of your site. This is all I can ham home. But back to this admin user issue, if you do have any problems, do contact me. If you can't make head or tail of this, if you don't have the time to do this, contact me. There'll be a small fee for that, but it is worth the investment. If you don't want to do it yourself, I can do this for you. I can delete the admin user and make sure your website is secure. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next week.